America, America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you live every Thursday, usually earlier than this, but, I was on the road all day and I'm back. And so I wanted to give the people a show because you deserve a show. And if you kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, I want to give you what you pay for in a way. And today I'm going to tell you why I'm supporting Cornel West, probably in the general. I'll probably vote for Marianne Williamson in the primary, but Cornel West in the general. And let me tell you why. Dems don't change if you vote for them, and we need the Dems to change if black people are going to be made whole. And people say like, well, Joe Biden's done pretty good on his National Labor Relations Board isn't bad. And no, it's not awful, but it's not particularly good. It's not. It's simply not. Let's stop pretending that he's the reincarnation of JFK of FDR with respect to this. No, I mean it's better than we're used to slightly, but it's not like the labor relations boards throwing out corporate shenanigans left and right and like declaring union victories left and right. No, it's just slightly better and has a little bit more latitude. But if it were a well-ordered world, Walmart and Amazon and all these people would already be unionized by now. You could change the culture really fast if you have a really good labor relations board. If you're actually serious about prosecuting. Now, if you kind of mealy-mouth and kind of half do it, you go at Joe Biden's speed. And I just don't think that I'm in the mood for half. I only have so much life left, and I'm tired of Democrats kind of half doing things. And then saying, well, we're better than Republicans who don't do it at all. And right now, especially if you're black, like that's pretty much palliative care. Half done political policy is palliative care. They'll ease your pain while they're dying of a perfectly preventable illness, right? Like reparations, we need to actually just get serious about federal reparations and make black people whole, or they'll just be a permanent underclass in the United States, and I'm just not okay with that. And the Democrats aren't serious about not making them a permanent underclass, and not even talking about not making them a permanent underclass. And since I don't want black people to be permanent underclass, I'm voting for the guy who's going to actually push for policies who are going to not allow black people to be a permanent underclass in the United States. I mean, for as long as the United States has been the United States, black people have been a permanent underclass, and that's going to continue until, my great-grandkids are dead, unless something changes. And so I'm voting for the guy who's actually serious about advocating for the quality of policies that will actually, dignify both black labor and black life and black work and black families by means of reparations. And the guy who actually understands that there's something a little bit weird that we're more comfortable giving Ukrainians guns and bullets to kill Russians than we are about giving black people houses. The home ownership rate is something like 42%. It's actually gone down a percentage point, and that's just ridiculous. It's a recipe for standing black degradation for as long as I can live. So I'm not going to vote for that. And this whole game that the Dems play about we're better than Republicans, and insofar as it's not going to lead to serious black power, does it really matter? Does it really matter? Like, look at a Dem state like California and a Republican state like Georgia. I'm in Georgia right now. Are black people doing better in Georgia, or are they doing better in California? No, I grew up in California. I can't afford to move back now. So it's not as if Dems are serious about empowering black people. California is hemorrhaging black people. And you know where they're moving to? Georgia. Kemp didn't close schools, right? So Kemp is the governor of Georgia. So we're used to living under Republican rule. And while it is apparently worse than living under Democratic rule, functionally it's not that much worse. And if we're actually serious about Democrats changing, we need to be okay with not voting for them, because they're not going to change if you keep voting for them. Maybe you sit out, maybe you just vote for the Republicans, but they're not going to change if you keep voting for them. And we have to stop pretending that voting for the Republicans or Republicans winning is the worst thing ever for black people. No, it's not that much worse than Dems kind of being mealy-mouthed for another like 50 years, right? So, yeah, so Cornel West trying to get us out of Ukraine is serious about reparations and is serious about workers. A lot of these white leftists, they'll say, or progressives, they'll tell you, well, we need to look at issues that unify us, that everyone is important about, feels implicated in. And then they'll start talking about climate change, and then they'll start talking about, the class war. Well, some black people want to own businesses, so not all of us are workers, right? Some black people want to own businesses, and we need black business owners doing well too, as well as black workers. So this idea that all black people need to only consider themselves workers is a little bit dubious. We need black people at all levels of production, and I'm hugely pro-labor, but I also like black ownership, right? And there's this idea that, if we all just kind of think about class first politics, that the white people will actually allow black people to have secure industries and social, political, and they'll show power, right? So the idea is that white people will give up in this class imagination, white people will give up the opportunity to marry into the capitalist class, to have their kids get educated into the capitalist class. They'll give up the opportunity of inheriting into the capitalist class. There's a big difference between someone in public housing, black guy in public housing, making $12 an hour and would like that to go up to 17, 18, 19, 25, and someone who is just waiting for Meemaw or Papa to die or to marry, is making $12 an hour and would like kind of to go up to $17, but mostly just wants to either marry well or wait for some grandparent to die so that they can get like a house or something like that. And they happen to work $12 an hour until, their parents going to buy them a house or they're going to inherit one of the properties, or hope to get hooked up with a guy who's going to avail them with properties. Right. So black poverty and white poverty, black working class existence and white working class existence are two different existences in terms of life opportunities. The black Mackenzie Scott's Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, who's worth $1 zillion now that Bezos got rid of her. There is no black, I was about to say the black Mackenzie Scott doesn't exist, right? And anybody who's aspiring to be the black Mackenzie Scott is confused about how this works and going to end up dying alone, possibly with the cats. She's for the cats. All right, so I am not one of these guys who thinks that you change Democrats by voting for Democrats. That's not the only way you're going to change Democrats. And it'd be one thing if Democrats had a really robust internal process, but they got a guy named Kennedy in the race who can't even get a debate. They're killing the democratic process. So you should feel a little bit dirty voting for a party that's killing the democratic process just because some play for national health care, some bogus play. I think it's a fake play for national health care. And first of all, if you can fight for national health care, if you can have local Democrats fighting for national health care, you can have local Democrats fighting for national reparations. Not state reparations, not local reparations, national reparations. Because, when you add in the fugitive slave law and the black codes and the FHA policy that was national, we have a national problem that needs a national solution. Yeah. I'm tired of the palliative care that black people are offered. I'm tired of pretending that black life in California, a Democrat-run state, is that much better than black life in Georgia, or that even black life in Virginia, a Democratic-run state, is that much better than black life in Georgia. It's just not. So we need to start playing harder ball with the Democrats and talk and actually be able to advocate our interests, at least, and not just be so casual about having to go on everybody else's program, right? You don't see the feminists saying, well, you don't see people talking to feminists and saying, well, we would join your pro-abortion cause if you only advocate for policies that also affect poor men. But black people are supposed to shut up about reparations unless you could tie it to policies that also help out poor whites. No, that's a different problem. Poor whites got their own problem, and a lot of them are degenerates. So there's that. And this gets confused. I'm going to get in trouble saying it. By the way, if you appreciate me talking like this, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com, kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month. Nobody else calls poor whites degenerates like I do, especially on the left. But this gets us confused because, then the non-poor whites look at their degenerate cousins and just assume all black people who are poor like their degenerate cousins are degenerates, when really they're just regular black people who are systematically determined through bad luck. Like things just don't break. Things just don't break as well on a consistent basis. So you can do a lot of things right, and I just have so many black friends who have done a lot of things right, and it's just things just don't break as well. And in America, those breaks matter. That structural support matters, and nobody has extra to kind of fill in the gaps. And this is all the result of government policy, so the government just needs to be made to pay for it. And Cornel West is the only one who's willing to bring it up. And the Democrats aren't even willing to have the debate or any debate, so you don't fix that, those self-satisfied Dems, by voting for them. And they will always be willing to trot out, well, the Republicans are worse, and this is marginally better. Yeah, palliative care. Palliative care is the care you give to people who are on their way out, about to die, to ease the pain, but not exactly prevent the illness. For example, if you have a treatable cancer and someone gives you morphine, and you're like, well, I just want you to treat my treatable cancer. I don't want morphine, but the Democrats are offering morphine, when really you actually just want someone to treat your treatable illness. Like black people have a treatable problem with an etiology that's very clear, and its origin is in the government, and the origin of the fix needs to be at the federal level. It's not particularly complicated. By the way, if you want a book on this, Margaret Kimberly's book is pretty good, Prejudicial. But also Mercer Baradoron's The Color of Money. It's a fantastic book. Look, the black institutions, they're not just black finances, black institutions. Families to families, churches, the whole thing. It's just written through with white comfort. Like, it's not. They are not autonomous institutions. They exist at the graces, at the pleasure of the area whites who really fund them, or allow them to be funded. And that is not a recipe for autonomy. No, diffuse resources that will only come through reparations is a recipe for autonomy. And like I said, if the Democrats were actually willing to entertain this debate, or people who are willing to have this debate, we could have a different conversation, and maybe I'd vote for a Democrat in the general. But the Democrats are an undemocratic party, and black people need to educate America. We need to be in a position to educate America, and that's not going to happen with a party that doesn't even believe in primaries. Right? And it's gross that we're giving so many weapons to Ukraine. Like, Russia's not going to allow an American proxy state on their border, and I don't blame them. So we're pretty much licensing the murder of Russians who are defending, what they consider their national sovereignty. And we're not admitting that that's what's going to go on, and it's going to go on forever. Meanwhile, this guy Zelensky comes and just, why don't we just give him a big old printing press for U.S. cash? And I would say we'd give him a gun factory where it can't be in Ukraine because Russians will just bomb it. They don't have any they don't have an economy. There is no Ukraine economy because it's a war zone. Anytime they try to build anything, Russians will bomb it. Right? So we just need to admit that the Ukraine's going to end up, and should end up possibly like Belarus, and that's just how it's going to be. Russia's a real power. We have to recognize them as such, and that is what it is. And let's stop pretending that it's about Ukraine self-determination. There's no Ukraine self-determination. There's barely Ukraine. They've now consolidated the media. They've took away all the private media, so now there's just state media. Zelensky has suspended elections. Let's stop pretending that we're fighting for a democracy in Ukraine. That's untenable. Part of what it is to be a sovereign nation is to be able to defend your borders. Ukraine can't do that, so they're not a sovereign nation. We need to just admit that. It would be the equivalent of Russia, giving guns to Puerto Rican separatists, right? That's just, it's ridiculous and absurd, and we need to admit that we don't get to unilaterally decide the shape of the world. And if Russia doesn't want an American proxy state, because that's what the Ukraine would be at the end of this war, it would function be an American proxy state on their border, and they can convince their people that this is a bad thing for Russia, then that's a forever war that we're just funding because we like the idea of Ukrainians killing Russians, even if that just like ratchets up to death. So there's one candidate who's seriously anti-war. There's one candidate who's seriously like for justice, racial justice, and there's one candidate who's seriously for working people to get their fair share in America, and that's Cornel West. So I support Cornel West. Maybe if you're on a debate stage, maybe if there was an open primary, maybe if there was a more robust dialogue, then it would be shown that this is a bad move. But I think it's a fine move. So I'll probably vote for Marianne Williamson in the primary and Cornel West in general, and I'll be happy with it. And if you say, well, you're just enabling Trump, I say, well, so what? Trump wasn't the worst. Let's stop pretending Trump was the worst. He was marginally worse than Joe Biden. And better insofar as it made the Democrats actually kind of stand up and have to stand for something. And, in terms of American first identity, I don't really I think the United States should take care of U.S. interests first, explicitly. And that's so, and I think Donald Trump probably has a better chance of ending the war in Ukraine because Biden has just shown he'll give Zelensky whatever he wants. And I'm not very comfortable with that because, like I said, black people can't even get houses, home ownership. And not black people, American descendants of slaves. I think American descendants of slaves. And since, that's only half me, even if the reparations do not even include me, I would be fine with it if they include all the black people I know, all the American descendants of slaves I know in Georgia. I would be fine with it. Like, I have advantages because my dad, didn't come from that kind of terror. And I see the degradation it is heaped on black America, when I look at my mom's side of the family. So I would be fine even if it just excluded the Africans like myself. But it is the issue, and it's not going to get any better. I don't want to live in a world where, my grandkids can't have like black friends who are like doing well because they're black. Like, not in spite of being black, but I want black people to be doing well because they're black, and they deserve to be doing well in the United States with strong families and all of that, and the degradation, both cultural and material, that's been heaped onto black communities is astounding and explanatory. Because either that or you just have this story in your head that black people are genetically deficient. And I don't think that's true. So it seems pretty clear when you look at the history that the United States did things to and allowed non-political institutions to do things to black people because they were black, and that explains the situation of Black America right now. And that's not going to be helped with, class-based policies on the popular left, or kind of mealy policies in the Bidenomics. It's not going to be helped by that. No, it's like black people are downwardly mobile, and that's just not appropriate, not fair, and unjust. And that's my. And the situation does not get fixed by voting for Democrats, unless you want to turn, like, if black people in California were thriving, that would be one thing, but like that's a Democratic state all the way up and down, and black people are not thriving in California. So vote for Cornel West, because if you can't actually push the policies you need to actually vote for, you need to support people who are actually going to articulate the policies you need, or at least support the conditions that allow for the articulation of the policies you need, which company Democrats don't even do. You're not even allowed. Like, they squash debates. So if you appreciate what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com. Kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, and I'll keep doing it. I'm going to do a different show on relationships on Monday, and I will talk to you then.